You know, I was gonna do a whole thing and I messed it up. God damn it. Forget it. Forget it. I was gonna sing a whole thing about, you know, the white rabbit, and I didn't. I like blanked for a second. I was gonna be like, remember what the dormouse said. Which I think is a really great song, by the way, to use for. I loved that music for the trailer, which
it's a very good trailer. I'll say
great
that.
trailer.
It's
Yeah.
a great trailer. I wonder if that song holds as much resonance younger viewers.
I don't know, but I got to tell you, I finished watching Matrix Revolutions and I saw that the trailer was there. And I generally avoid trailers like the plague. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to watch this trailer. I have to just take a peek. And I did. And I loved that. I love the way they set that all up. That was cool.
It's a good trailer. I watch trailers, but I'm not the biggest fan of trailers, but I'll watch them. But yeah, that's definitely a good one.
Do we briefly want to touch on, let's start with we could literally probably sit here and discuss the original Matrix series top to bottom till we're blue in the face. To avoid that, let's start the conversation here. Let's start the conversation here. How did the Matrix 2 and 3 make you feel about the trilogy as a whole, the story as a whole, and does the Matrix trilogy sort of like stand on its own with Revolutions being the conclusion, that sort of thing?
You mean Revolutions, or you mean Resurrections?
I meant
Revolutions.
Okay. The names are so, like, even for this, I mistakenly put Revolutions instead of Resolutions.
Right.
Resurrections. Oh, here's Jeremy. Hi, Jer.
Spicy.
Hi.
Hey,
Spicy.
Hey,
oh man,
this is Bob.
I'm all zoomed
yeah,
in.
hold on. I'm trying to find a good
orientation
good mixture.
here.
Yeah, good orientation. So.
Oh yeah, he's really zoomed in.
Hey guys.
Hey, you're being a little bit of a close talker there, pal.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
All right, so Jeremy, we're jumping right into this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just to sort of pose the question that I just posed to Bob. We're starting out. We're going to try and keep this as structured as possible. We're starting out talking about how does Matrix 2 and 3 sort of work as a trilogy? Like, how does the Matrix stand as a trilogy with just 2 and 3 and Revolutions being the final?
Can I answer what you kind of also added a second thing was what was my relationship with it?
Did I say that?
Yeah, you said that in the original when you were originally asking it.
Okay, go ahead.
Jeremy hopped on. I was going to say really quick, like, I hated the Matrix sequels, just like most people when they first came out.
Okay.
I'm also 39 right now, so you can do the math and figure out the age I was when they came out. I hated them just like everybody else. I hated them for about, I would say, another 10, 15 years, maybe even.
Yeah.
But now in my old age, I've revisited them and I kind of understand them more than when I was a teenager. And they mean more to me now, and I appreciate them more properly, even though I still think they're a mess. I understand that they were trying to deliver these like weird philosophical movies.
Yeah.
Philosophical movies with over-the-top action that they almost barely could achieve with the current technology. They were swinging for the fences.
Yes, they were.
I think that the stuff and the themes that they were trying to give us wasn't for the audience that was going to see it at the time. All of us needed to grow up like another 10 to 15 years to appreciate what they were trying to do. But most people just remember how much they hated them, and they have never changed that opinion. You know, I'm a rewatcher, so I gave it a few more chances, but I know a lot of people haven't, and that's okay. And that's my thought on it, is that people have not revisited them and given them a second thought.
I think that's a good point. I think that, like rewatching them was something, because of the reasons that you mentioned, is not something I was really looking forward to doing. I remember being incredibly disappointed with the second one. And in fact, like you said, like part of it part of being able to appreciate it more now comes from being a bit mature. Like I'll just say, for example, like the architect scene in the second one, like I didn't know what the word anomaly meant when I saw that movie. And I was like, I remember just watching it and being like, he's just throwing all these big words at us to try and blow our mind, and it doesn't even make sense. And I was just like, that's not to say it wasn't still a bit hard to follow that scene, because he is throwing a lot of dense stuff at you real quick. But I definitely appreciated them more now than I had upon the first watch.
I mean, that scene is like a punch in the face, even if you understand what's happening.
There's a lot to there is a lot to digest, and I think that the biggest contrast is that the original Matrix, which is an outlier among, I mean, it stands alone as just being the best and the masterpiece and blah blah blah, and we all agree unanimously about that. But that, yes, when you get to that architect scene, in general, the conversations with the Frenchman and all this stuff, all this and that, is that the symbolism, what's the word I'm trying to use? Not Greek, blah, 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 the philosophy. Sorry, the philosophy.
Okay, I thought you were looking for something else.
No, I was thinking like Greek philosophy. No, just philosophy. The philosophy, like the original Matrix, it's in and of itself is basically
it's the cave theory.
Yeah, it's the allegory of the cave. It's
literally philosophy 101. If you watch,
right.
if you take philosophy 101 in college, which I was at the time, it is like word for word almost.
And so that's like, and that's great. And the way they weave in the philosophy in a way, it's very balanced. It's very balanced in the story that they're telling. It's almost like they are putting story first, and they're sort of putting the philosophy second. So like the philosophy is like a backbone or a support structure, but the story really does come first, and they have a really great story. I think the Matrix becomes a hit, and then all of a sudden, and I was always kind of like just shrugged my shoulders back then when I saw them in the theaters, and every time I've probably revisited it once, and then most recently I literally a decade and a half later revisited it again. But I was just kind of like, I was let down, disappointed, but I was just kind of like, whatever, that kind of thing. But the thing that what happens is with the sequels, and this is just me, and you guys will go around and you could each elaborate. What happens with those sequels is that they go, okay, we got a hit. The Wachowskis, they're like, whoa, we have this hit. Studios like, we have this hit. Now, what comes next? And I truly don't think any of them had any idea. Like, I think maybe they had like an inkling. I think they were just like, oh my God, like we have this IP that's going to make us millions and millions of dollars. Whatever we put out next, everybody's going to go see the Matrix sequel. Like we got it made. And I'm not saying that that's the reason why they weren't as good. I'm just saying that I think that really they then messed with the formula that made the first one work so well. In and of itself, talking about the architect and stuff and the keymaster, all of a sudden it became more about the philosophy. All of a sudden it became like the plot took a back seat to these very convoluted conversations. Like every time we get to a new place, now we have to have a conversation about will and destiny and predetermination and, as Jeremy was saying, anomalies and this, that, and the other.
Doesn't that make it feel subversive sometimes, though? Like the fact that they did that in blockbuster movies is insane to me now that I look at it.
It's like, you know what it is? It's like it's almost like it's like you're getting like it's like the putting the medicine in some candy to make it go down better. It's like, we're going to give you this, we're going to wrap this philosophy in this thing, and then in the third one, everything turns into this sort of Christ-like martyr-esque allegory, and that really turned audiences off. A lot of people were sort of got annoyed that Neo essentially becomes this this martyr-like figure in the end. And, it just sort of, the characters don't really change. That's the other thing too. In the first movie, all the characters kind of change, or they kind of have to get to a place that they're going. They don't really change in 2 and 3. Nobody changes. Neo kind of stays the same the whole time. He doesn't really, nothing happens to him. He just
kind of learns what choice is in the end. That's like, but he doesn't change who he is.
Right.
I think I took the wrong pill.
Right. And shout out to Walter White down in New Zealand. Happy holidays to you. Thank you for joining us.
These are women now. I can't hear what he said. But I was going to say, with the sequels too, I think I like this is going to come out of nowhere, but I like every Jurassic Park movie. There's only one good Jurassic Park movie. I enjoy watching all of them. Now, what is the one thing that they all betrayed on the first movie is people keep going back to the island. With the Matrix,
right?
The sequels betrayed one very fundamental concept. I think back then that none of us could wrap our head around was the fact that there's no spoon. We saw Neo in the last frame fly up into the camera like Superman, and then the sequels were like, well, there's kind of a spoon. He's kind of not a god. There's kind of a bunch of other problems. Like the ending of the first movie, pretty much we don't ever need to know what happens after that moment, right? He flies up. He is God in the Matrix.
You could literally end. We don't need
anything
sequels.
else. It's a perfect. It's a perfect ending, and then it just portrays that twice by saying, "Oh no, there's still a spoon, and Neo can't really do everything." Like the fact that he still has to fight agents and stuff and Reloaded, like even fight them. Like why can't he just erase them with his hand? It's weird, right?
That was the thing is that when they had him fly away and then decide to, reopen it and make more movies, it's like suddenly the stakes were drastically lowered. You know what I mean? He's got this ability and he's so powerful. And then it's like, all right, it doesn't matter how many versions of Agent Smith you throw at him. I didn't feel like there was any major threat going on because I knew how, that's the type of thing that happens when you give someone so much power like that. The stakes seem a lot lower, and I found that the first one, there was so much mystery around it too, like I don't know what the Matrix is. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who these people are who are after him, and it kept me on the edge of my seat. There was this suspense and none of the action I found in the second one really had as much. It didn't feel as impactful. I didn't seem to care as much about these scenes that, on paper are like exciting because there's car chases and guns and stuff. But I didn't like care as much as I did in the first one.
They're almost, like I said, there's almost like the Wachowskis are subversive no matter what they do. I mean, The Matrix is itself a subversive blockbuster movie, the first one. And the sequels, they feel sort of like, in a way, they're almost, I don't know, making fun of even back then, before we get even into Resurrections, which is a whole other thing. They feel like they're kind of making fun of the fact that the sequels shouldn't exist. You know what I mean? There's highly stylized action sequences that they're kind of like, hey, they gave us money to do this. But they also are good filmmakers. They're good. They know that there's mistakes there. But I mean, there's an intention there behind it that I see now when I watch it, where they're like, "Here, watch this." It kind of doesn't matter though.
Yeah,
but you want to know something? They yes, but and coupled with the fact that they're just kind of like, and then all of a sudden we have this City of Zion comes into play, and it's just sort of like, we got all these different things going on. Now we're invested in this story of this general and the boy, which is my personal favorite part of Matrix Revolutions. By the way, I love that story between the general and the boy. That's kind of not
my favorite part, Jeff.
I love that.
I love like half of Revolutions, then the other half I do tune out. Yeah.
But ultimately the films don't feel like they really don't feel like they're building to anywhere or going anywhere, or they don't feel like they're building towards any solution. I feel like it feels like the Matrix feels like a train going 88 miles per hour on some train track, and there's a bridge that's gone out over a ravine, and they're going to run off the the bridge before the rest of the train tracks have been built. Like there's just nothing there. It's like they're putting track down in front of the train as fast as it's going, and they don't have any sort of like inclination in sight. So when it ends and it's like, oh, that's it. Neo is
negotiating like the terms with the machines.
Yeah, he has to like negotiate terms with the machines, and he's blind now, and he's got to like and by the way,
he can still see.
Well, they do introduce a really interesting element that they introduce like Smith does get what he wants.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and then he squanders it. He gets what he wants. He wants to escape. And the way he does it is by downloading himself into the guy Bane. But then they just squander it. They don't do anything with it. Make him the leader, make him like this popular factioned, leader of Zion, wanting something completely different than say what everybody else wants. Like, bring him out as an antagonist in the real world, since you were so brash to have him download himself into a person. I thought that was so cool.
It's a real Hobbit situation, right? Like, it seems like the 2 sequels were made on the go while they were doing it because they had to follow up a hit. Like the Hobbit had, like, Peter Jackson kind of had to do it just legally. He had to finish the Hobbit. It doesn't feel like there were full ideas finished and everything.
Well, they say that in Matrix 4. He says, if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So, there you go.
I wanted to point out one thing, though, about which I think could be a good transition thing.
Yeah, go ahead. Push us in.
What don't the sequels fault on? Which I think is very, very pertinent to Resurrections, because the sequels never let up on the filmmaking, the craft, the actual, like, I'm talking actual production, the style, the craft, the ingenious ways to film things, the action sequences. They're all pretty revolutionary. Yeah. The photography. If anything, you can say that stylistically, the 3 movies do fit together. Like, even down to the music choices, the tone, everything does work in that respect. We're not talking writing. I'm just talking, like, tonally, visually, musically, they all work together. And you know what I mean? And I think that's where Resurrections, I think a lot of people are starting to, that's where some people are very disappointed, I think, with Resurrections, right? Like, at least I've seen that.
Yes, there's definitely there is most certainly there's a tonal shift. Well, what it really feels like, let's just jump in. Let's jump right into that.
I was trying to make that.
Yeah, no, that's good. So it feels like and you could chalk this up to a storytelling element. The only thing I would say, and I don't want you to respond to this because then it's just going to ping pong back and forth, but I'm just going to say this. It's kind of like I'm trying to get the last word in and then jump out of the conversation so we can move on for the sake of moving on. The only thing I would say is that story does that I will give that to you as a boon, but ultimately the story is what's most important, and the story is what matters.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure you wouldn't, being a guy who does a screenwriting podcast in and of itself. It's like, we go into the movie with the automatic expectations that the style and tone are hopefully like the films that come before. It doesn't always land, and people do complain about it, but that, I don't know how many points or how much credit we can give to them on those merits alone. Jumping out of that conversation.
Well, are we talking about, we're talking about Resurrections, right? Like,
we're talking about how we're launching into the Resurrections right now. And I'm starting by saying that the Matrix feels very small in Resurrections. Like, the actual world feels a lot smaller, and that could be due to a budget thing. You could chalk that up to story, like this new analyst guy. Spoilers if you haven't seen it, we put it up in the title. We're going to spoil the shit out of this. The analyst guy made his Matrix a lot smaller because he figured out a way to make people happier, and therefore the Matrix doesn't need to be as big as maybe it is or something. I don't know. But the city, the sets, everything feels much smaller.
So I kind of, as far as having a stylistic change, I think I was maybe hoping for something, maybe a bigger change. Because, like I said, I was not crazy about the second and third films. And initially, when I heard they were making a new one, I didn't really have any interest in it because I was like, it's going to be more of the same. And so, when I saw the trailer for the first time, and there's this kind of like amnesia thing going on, and they're playing White Rabbit, I was like, maybe this will be a big tonal shift and they'll actually get it right, Mm-hmm. And then, I was okay with that. I was okay
Me too.
with there being,
I was fine with that.
I
guess my question is for Jeremy is, what does get it right mean in this situation? I don't actually have an answer, but like, there's the first movie, which we all pretty much respect, right? And then the sequels were like a mess. I don't know what right would be anymore for sequels going forward. You know what I mean? Like, like a fourth Matrix, I'm not like, Yeah, they're doing it right this time. I'm like, I don't know what right would be.
I'll tell you, I have an answer. I have an answer.
Okay,
and tell me if you
please.
agree with this. Tell me if you agree with this, Jeremy.
Yeah.
From watching that trailer, because I had heard a little bit of hype on the internet about the trailer, but I avoided it. And then after revisiting the Matrix films and seeing it up on HBO Max, the trailer, I just was too tempted. I said, all right, I'm going to check this out. And hearing the White Rabbit music and what the trailer, you know, a really good trailer is going to kind of give you the barest of setups and kind of like set you up for, or set the precedent or the tone of what you're probably going to see. And, you know, obviously that's a whole conversation of itself of how they, you know, trick you or they don't trick you, yada, yada, yada. But what what's it called? What I thought was going to happen, or what I took away from that trailer, was, oh my God, this is so cool. So he's kind of back in the Matrix again somehow, and he has to, I guess, break out. And it kind of bummed me out, because when I was going into it, I love the way that they kind of opened the movie. I love that without after the initial opening, which I found incredibly confusing the first time, and I actually had to read some reviews and then rewatch the film. And I told you about this, Bob.
I totally understood the opening. The first time
makes
I was
so
like,
much sense.
What was going on?
So confused. And then
so confusing.
Once we launch into Neo's Thomas Anderson's life as a video game designer, I'm like, this is the coolest fucking way to reset the whole thing. And I guess one of my biggest beefs, and this is just armchair fanboy or whatever, you know, audience member wishing, you know, the movie does what the movie does, and we just have to accept it. You know, that's why so many people get angry at movies when a movie doesn't go the way they want it to. I was thinking in my head, like, wow, how cool would it be if like just the first hour was him? And I guess it would work better if it was like a mini series or like a 10 episode season of him, kind of like WandaVision, but with Neo in the Matrix, slowly realizing that his life there's something wrong, taking us through again in that requel kind of way, because the Matrix 4 is a bit of a requel, a little bit. It definitely does. Like, we spend oodles amount of time being introduced to new crew members, and I'm just like, why are we doing this? We did this in the first fucking Matrix. Like, I don't need to know that about the guy who's replacing Tank and how his dad liked redwood trees. Don't tell me about. I don't need to meet the pot. Like, I just don't care. Like, I really don't care. Like that stuff should already be known, because we did that in the first Matrix. We already know that setup. So it's like we did get some of that requel stuff in that kind of way. I really wanted to see a almost slow burn of him slowly realizing that he is in a fucking Matrix. And they sort of do it for a little bit. Like, they just tease us. And then, and so I guess that in turn to go back to the question of, did they do it right? It's like, it's almost like resetting it from 2 and 3, bringing us back into the Matrix, and then watching him slowly unravel in the monotony of his life, and then suddenly realize, wait a minute, I know who I really am. And giving us these little hints, these little points of like, oh my God, there's a Sentinel on his desk. Oh my God, there's Trinity. He's designed these games, and that whole thing, a stroke of genius. Christina Ricci, stroke of genius. All that stuff, stroke of genius. So I don't know where Bob just went. He'll be back.
Well, you know, to answer your question about one thing, what I really think made the first film work is that they didn't try to, like, all right, so the premise was like a far out premise, right? You know, what is the Matrix, and
yeah,
you know, answering that question and coming to find out that it's this simulation to keep the wool over our eyes so that they can use us for energy, right? That's a far out concept, but it's not particularly convoluted, you know. And, you know, okay, so we have these agents who their job is to, you know, not keep the peace, but, you know, keep things from, more or less to keep the peace for the machines. And then with the sequels, you start introducing, there's all these other characters that aren't humans. There's some sort of program. There's the Keymaster, and there's the French guy.
It stops feeling like the real world.
Real quick, you guys can hear me, right? You guys
yes.
can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Okay, making sure.
And it's like, you know, suddenly there's all this other stuff going on that just seems kind of unnecessary, and it doesn't seem like true to life, or at least true to the premise of this is a simulation to keep us enslaved and to keep us thinking it's real. Like who are all these other players in it? You know, what is all this stuff? And you know, like delving really deep into the philosophy of it and stuff. So I thought, to me, getting it right would be sort of like a back to basics approach. You know what I mean? Like finding what it is that made the original work, which for me was, you know, mystery, suspense, the cool sort of like cyberpunk thing that was going on, but without getting too crazy with the whole all of Zion and stuff. Like, you know, just seeing the ship, knowing that these guys are the members of the ship and they're off doing their
was
thing.
so cool about the Matrix. The ship captured your imagination about what the rest of the world was like.
Yeah.
You didn't need to see Zion.
I didn't know that they were like one ship of all these others, and that, you know, a lot of the people in Zion don't even believe in like the one and the prophecy and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And
it has a real Jedi tone to it from like Star Wars, you know, like there are people in Star Wars that don't believe in the Jedi supremacy and what that all means and the Force and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that really worked for me in the first movie was, as a fan of Kung Fu movies, I just thought I bought it, you know, all the fights, like when he's in there fighting,
the fights were the best.
Morpheus, you know, initially, and he's like, if you want to hit me, like every one of those hits, every one of those punches had impact to me. You know what I mean? And they looked good and they felt real. And it just, you know, I think the movies moving forward didn't have much of that. And that includes this most recent one.
I actually really like the action in 2 and 3. I even like the silly stuff, but acknowledging it's silly. I love silly. I love like the anime Super Saiyan fight at the end of Revolutions. I love that whole. It's raining. The music is insanely epic. Like it's ridiculous. Like the face punch alone is the funniest thing that ever happened. The whole oh my god! Like that is hilarious. It doesn't look good. None of it looks good, but it to me, I love it. But I was gonna say what you said. None of it feels real. None of it. Like the fighting is
CGI.
It's so much CGI. Like rarely, maybe some of the highway fight on top of the car might feel real, but like most of the fighting is just cartoons.
When Morpheus jumps up high above the truck, it's so good.
It's so fake. Look, I don't care though. It's so silly. I love
but that's what I mean. That's what's so. It's just so goofy. It's just. But at the time, you didn't even blink an eye. You were like, "Oh yeah.
This is what we do." Yeah.
But what about okay?
So, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
somebody go.
I was just gonna say it's not even so much the CGI that I didn't like, but like, you know, for instance, the scene where he's out there in the, I don't know, is it a basketball court right after he meets with the Oracle? This is in
Reloaded.
The second one, Reloaded. Thank you. And he's fighting all the different Smiths, and it's just like, you know, this is like a classic flaw of fights when you have one person versus many people, and it's like, you know, you see the way the many are moving and it's like they're waiting for him to, you know what I mean? It's like they don't look like they're all actually trying to attack him in an effective manner. And so it's like I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, this is nothing new to me. It takes you out of it. It takes me out of it, you know.
Okay, and I'm totally agreeing, and that's a fight that I would never have defended, but I'll defend it like this. Like I said, the Wachowskis are kind of trolls, and I still believe there's a vein of that through both those movies. Like when he throws one of the Agent Smiths into all the other Agent Smiths, there is a bowling alley.
Yeah, there's a bowling ball
crash sound effect. Like it's not. There is a tonal shift, and they know it. They wouldn't do that kind of thing if they were taking it seriously. Like they kind of get it. They were almost like, we can't top what we did before, so we're just going to go Looney Tunes. So, like, you know what I mean? With the fighting, at least. Because how do you top the first movie? You really kind of can't.
You know what? The problem, and the other thing too is, and this is what I've noticed about the Matrix films, they're all sticky. Very, very sticky. I mean, they're so sticky that you could stick them on a wall, much like stickers. And if you need to get stickers, the best stickers that you can get, bar none, are Riot stickers from riotstickers.com, which happens to power this channel. That's right, guys. And we're running a special promotion here. on the channel. If you look at the little scroll below, right below Bob, it says a nice deal for your band, 50% off, which is $29.50. Thank you, Bob. $29.50 for 50 3-inch by 3-inch stickers, normally $59 at riotstickers.com. If you go into the description of this video, you will find the link. And if you use promo code FRUMESS, FRUMESS, you're going to get 50% off, which is $29.50. You can't beat it. Let's just play the video and get back to the conversation real quick.
Posters and promo cards, there's nothing we can't print for you. From stage backdrops to bass drum heads, we can print on shirts, we can print on hats, we can print on pants. Cheap prices and high quality, quick turnaround times and free shipping. We also offer free artwork support, great customer service, and so much more. We are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. Riotstickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb.
So anyway, Matrix 4.
Can I unleash a scenario? Can I unleash a scenario on both of you?
Sure.
Because I wrote some notes.
Yeah. Let's get to your notes. Go ahead.
So Matrix 4 is a meta movie. So I thought starting with this idea that at least I believe, I think I was sort of talking to you about it, Jeff, that would kind of paint a picture for both of you how I view this movie. Because there's a lot of talk on what is this movie for this franchise, you know?
Right.
So I'm going to describe something, and then at the end, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
There's a successful movie franchise is a huge hit, right?
Right.
Years pass without a sequel. The studio has been begging the director or directors to come back, and they threaten they're going to do it without them because they own the IP, right?
Right.
If they say yes, if the director says yes, they can do literally whatever they want. And they do say yes. And they do whatever they want.
You said do.
I know I did.
Sorry.
Which includes doing what they want includes a meta narrative commenting on the original the success of the original movie and the movie itself.
Right.
It's also this movie that they made is a complete change of tone and genre, right? The filmmaker publicly admits that the reason they said yes to this was so that they could make sure that no future entries into the franchise would happen ever again. That was their main goal, right? What movie and filmmaker am I talking about?
You're not talking about the Matrix movies. You're talking about another film franchise with movies. And you're also talking about David Lynch.
No.
As well. David Lynch. Same thing happened with the Twin Peaks, but
I am. Okay.
Who are you talking about?
So a lot of people are saying, hey, this Resurrections, it's the Last Jedi of the Matrix, or it's the new nightmare of the Matrix movie.
I happen to think it's the Last Jedi, but for positive reasons.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Last Jedi rules. We're not talking about that, Jeff. So I think no offense to Jeff. Jeff, you know I love you and respect your opinion. Those both are hack comparisons. This is easily everything I just described, the Gremlins 2 of Matrix movies. Everything I just said down the line, 100,000% applies to both Gremlins 2, which is a masterpiece that I love dearly, and Matrix Revolutions. This is the Gremlins 2 of the Matrix movies. Lana Wachowski did not
want hot take.
Lana Wachowski has publicly said she never wanted there to be another Matrix movie. They said they were going to do it without her. She says, fine, I'll do it. So what does she do? She makes a meta movie in which she criticizes, number one, reboots and fandom, comments on the original, and then swears in real life that there will never be sequels to this. And she also makes something that's so divisive, I don't think the public's going to be thirsting for more Matrix movies after this. She did it intentionally. It was an intentional act. So yeah, that's my hot take, is that it's the Gremlins 2 of the Matrix movies.
Okay, I'm going to counter, but I'm not going to get into Star Wars. I'm going to say the word Star Wars, but I'm not going to talk about Star Wars. I'm just going to say the word Star Wars. So I don't want to trigger Bob.
I'm just kidding.
Okay?
I'm fine, man. I'm just kidding.
No, I know, but because Bob and I will get locked into a Star Wars, it'll be
we won't talk about that. No,
it really will be. It'll be like a Peter Griffin versus the chicken, like extended fight sequence.
I think we've done that on this channel.
We have.
We already have that,
which is why we're going to be very cautious. I'm going to be very cautious and tread carefully.
Yeah.
My ultimate surmisation, and I have to just speak about Star Wars briefly in order to make my point, in that for Star Wars, I thought The Last Jedi did not service the overall trilogy and was frustrated by it. In terms of The Matrix, this is probably my thesis statement. In terms of The Matrix, I thought that The Matrix Resurrections is almost the Last Jedi of the Matrix series, and for all the reasons that it doesn't service Star Wars, it 100% services this Matrix trilogy, it being in that it's not the middle part of a trilogy.
Yeah, I was going to say that's where the comparison falls apart for me, is the
but
actual
that's why.
circumstances.
But you see, I'm saying that it didn't work because it was the middle part of a trilogy. It works for Matrix because it's a tacked on thing that's happening 18 years later. Had they made that in the middle, well, I don't know, you can't make that comparison about Matrix Resurrections being in Matrix Reloaded. But my point is that all this lofty stuff that they do in The Last Jedi that's so divisive and polarizing, they do it in the middle of a story that needs to finish an arc.
Mm-hmm.
This is something where, like, okay, the Matrix is done and people are not satisfied. People are not satisfied with the way that Matrix Revolutions ends. It ends with Neo dying and sacrificing his life in this, peace, and just a really just sort of cop-out sort of situation that nobody's happy with. And so here is a movie that sort of unravels all of that stuff, doing it exactly the way that you just said, for all the reasons that you just said, with Lana, doing it for those reasons and yada, 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 which is great. And I do love that. But also putting a nice little punctuation on what the Matrix is either all about, or sort of reframing what it's all about, in that I love so much more. It's just like this obscure animated film from 1982 that I'm about to reference from Nirvana called Rock and Rule. There's a quote from the villain. He says, "One song, one heart, but no one," meaning that the song that can sing the demon back has to be sung by two people, not by one person. So the villain thinks, oh, I've won. There's no person that can do it. And his folly is that it's actually two people that create the singular voice that can send the demon back. And that's what we learned about the Matrix, that Neo is special because of the love that he has with Trinity. And that Trinity is this element that needs to be in Neo's orbit in order for him to do the thing that he does.
It really made Trinity the one also. I mean, it really does.
Or there is no one, basically.
There is no one.
Right. There is no one. And to me, after what we got in the original Matrix, even though none of it fucking makes sense and it's so convoluted all over the place, I sat at the end after all that and thinking, because again, when you first watch something and it doesn't go where you expect it to go, you're kind of so tripped up on that it didn't go where you wanted it to go that it's hard to sort of accept what's happening now. My, second rewatch, I'm going, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And then at the end, they're flying like doves in the air together,
which
over
references throughout the movie how they're looking at the doves flying around.
Right.
Throughout the whole movie,
very true.
The swarm of birds flying around. Yeah.
Right. And especially in that repetitive sequence. And I'm going, okay, I'm great. They both, and they're both in charge, that they're working with the analyst to make the Matrix work in a meaningful way. And in that way, that's the true partnership between the machines and the one and the people, because there's always going to be a Matrix. There's never not going to be a Matrix. And they get to make the Matrix the humans get to make the Matrix on their terms.
I mean, they kind of frame that when Neo first arrives, when they talk about the war, like they kind of like point out the flaw of the thesis of the original trilogy, which is it's us versus them.
Right.
When it actually is, there is no us versus them. It's us working together to make this whole mess work. Like,
right.
You have to have the machines and the humans work together, because I mean, and ultimately they're right because the planet is completely fucked. The planet, you can't just have humans be free. They can't go out into the world anymore. So they do have to work together, and that's how you find peace. So yeah, I mean, like I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing with you about the Last Jedi thing, Jeff. I honestly think if the I mean, we disagree about maybe some nitty gritty on that, but I think if the Last Jedi was just by itself and came out 18 years after, or came out, it would work better just by itself. It would work better. Way better. I agree with you there. Let's say this. It's the Last Jedi thematically, maybe, but at least give me the Gremlins 2 thing in real life.
Why can't it?
I mean,
Bob, why can't it be both? I think it's everything you said, I agree with. And I haven't read all that stuff. You know,
there's a video of Lana literally saying there will be no more. She's like, no, there's no more.
There's no more.
She does not want this to go anywhere.
You know what that says to me?
Isn't that amazing too? In this day and age, just having her say like, "No, it's over."
Yes, but you want to know something? And Jeremy, I want to hear what you have to say as well. Hearing that backstory, now suddenly all of my gripes with the Matrix Resurrections are, she just didn't give a shit.
Or she was actively working against. Like, she's like, I'm not going to give them this stylized action movie they want. They're going to get a fucking love story.
No, but there is so much stuff that reintroducing us to all these shit. Like we spent like precious time. If this is our last Matrix movie, we spent precious time basically remaking the Matrix. And it's like, dude, we don't need you to remake the fucking Matrix right now. And B, the whole sort of glossing over the fact that they're like hanging out with machines now. Like they sort of explain it. And if you watch the Animatrix episode, that one episode where the machine chooses to help the humans, you're kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that kind of flies. But it's like, there's no explanation. There's just nothing. Just gloss over so much shit.
Can we also give Lana props just for the fact that she didn't, I don't like retconning, and I love the fact that she's totally 100% counting everything in continuity. I love that.
I'm very happy about that. And I thought I had mad respect for her when she started referencing the Matrix films and Warner Brothers, and that she straight up gave the finger to Warner Brothers by saying, oh, Warner Brothers wants you to make a new like they're like, do our bidding. She's like, fine, I'll do your bidding. And then she literally does their bidding by totally just like shitting on them, as you were saying, Bob. So I have uber respect for Lana and keeping everything the way it is.
Too. When I was rewatching, I made some notes, but Jeremy, please give us
your
opinion on this.
Well, real quick. I really like the Star Wars comparison because I felt like after watching this, this most recent one, Resurrections, and it almost felt like 2 and 3 felt like analogous to the way the Star Wars prequels did. You know what I mean? They're canon, and they're part of somehow like the lore of, the original 3 films, but they're kind of from another time, what is it? The late 90s and early 2000s and stuff. And then, this film, Resurrections, felt more, like the way they did with the Star Wars sequels. You know what I mean? Let's sort of go back to basics. Let's sort of give the fans sort of what they want. You know what I mean? Yeah, definite requel. And I was okay with that. I thought, the thing about like Trinity and her being the one, and I like the way they sort of rehashed it but turned it on its head. He doesn't want to take the red pill this time. I like that. I like the fact that there was the whole sort of what's the word? There's a reluctance, a lot more reluctance on the part of Trinity and Neo both, as far as like freeing themselves. I like that. The thing that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way about this film was it, and in this sense, I felt it was a lot like The Last Jedi too. It's like when you have one of these action movies with the convoluted plot, and it's like, okay, there's going to be a 30-minute window when we can get into this place, and you're going to be doing this, and here's the plan we're going to hash out. And it's just like, I've seen that done in so many movies.
The heist.
the heist, you know,
Yeah,
it's
the
just
heist.
like, is this the movie I'm watching now? You know,
They did it in
They-
it in Matrix Revolutions. They did it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a screenwriting thing. They need to add a ticking clock.
Mhm.
You always need a ticking clock to amp up the adrenaline, or else
Yeah,
it feels dead in the water a little bit.
it's
Yeah.
like it just seemed kind of silly. Like she had to like download her consciousness into the other girl, into what was her name, Bugs, right?
Well, I
because-
liked as a character. I thought she was a great
Bugs was
character.
cool. Yeah, totally
Yeah,
cool.
I like
Great
Bugs.
character.
Yeah.
You know, we got to put her consciousness in Bugs because we can't just unplug her without her being aware that she's getting unplugged. But
Yeah,
by
it
the
was
time
just-
that happened, she was aware of it. They were there talking to her and making her
But-
aware. And I don't know how the exits work now that there's no payphones and
Mirrors.
stuff.
There's mirrors or
Mirrors,
something.
they don't really you know, there's just things that they just sort of throw in there and be like, okay, well, that's how it is, and that's how it is, and I
The
don't
tech
really.
jargon of that whole scene, Jeremy, to me was
Mhm.
also like confusing even the second time. Where I
Yeah.
was like, this, I don't know if it's an execution thing where it was like, I don't really understand what's going on even now
Yeah,
about why them getting her out like this, and they're distracting him. But I was like, wait, he can't, his systems aren't monitoring this. I don't know. It doesn't.
yeah.
I guess it doesn't matter. It just does. I guess kind of like have to wash my hands of something happened there that worked.
And yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know what it is, but something.
I also want to say, I just want to weigh in here. I understood and appreciated and was totally accepting of how they handled Morpheus and the reason behind it. And by the way, his reluctance, it's not so much, it was reluctance, but it was also conflict. It almost seemed like Neo was unconsciously trying to free himself from the Matrix.
Yeah.
That's why he created that little thing that he did at the beginning.
Jeff, do you think
modal.
too, like that was also problem solving? I think that to some degree, what they did here with Agent Smith and Morpheus was problem solving because they wanted Agent Smith and Morpheus to fight people, and they didn't want to do anything. Obviously, Lana didn't want to make Lawrence Fishburne and Hugo Weaving do anything physical. So they found this is a problem solving issue, right? Like
yes, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved Morpheus.
that's
I was
nothing wrong with
very
it.
happy with
I thought
Morpheus. And how
Jonathan
they did
Groff
it.
was cool. I thought he was cool. He was a good. He's chewing on scenery there.
Here's what I totally did not need in this movie at all. Like it just felt like, excuse this vulgar, this absolutely vulgar, atrocious analogy that I'm about to use. It felt like I had 3 dicks and only 2 holes. That's the honest to God. I'm sorry. That's
There's nothing to be sorry.
Explain
You're
what
gonna
you
have to
mean. Explain it
that.
though. You need to.
I'm
Explain
going
it.
to. I'm going to. In that, I like thought so far ahead of that analogy that I didn't even explain what it was analogous
No
to.
clue what you're saying.
I just randomly said that.
The dance of the 3.
I get it. I feel that way
Dance
all
of
the
the 3
time.
snakes.
I totally get it.
Yeah, the dance of the 3 snakes. No, what I'm referring to is Smith. I absolutely unequivocally did not need Smith in this movie. I say leave Smith in the original trilogy. He's great. He ends. As a matter of fact, Smith has an arc. He actually has an arc. Like nobody has an arc in the original Matrix. There's an arc in the original Matrix movie, but there's no arc throughout the whole trilogy. I don't think anybody has an arc except for Smith. And so it's kind of like leave Smith Smith was the first big bad villain. Leave him there. Just leave him there.
Like I
Instead,
said,
they needed him to come to the rescue at the end.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second.
I like that performance. I'll say that. I just
it's no. I was okay with the performance. I'm not upset about the performance. I'm saying don't even give us we don't need like an alternate Smith. It just felt so unnecessary to the story and the plot. I felt no gravity. I didn't feel any gravity, at least with Morpheus. They were kind of doing like this thing where they're cutting back to Lawrence Fishburne and then he's trying to emulate his predecessor, and it's kind of interesting. I felt like such again, this felt like, or I should say, I felt like I had 3 dicks and there were only 2 holes, because this just felt like an extra dick hanging off that I didn't need. And instead, here's my what's it called? Armchair fanboy couch surfing hindsight 2020 quarterbacking is that give all that stuff to the analyst. Let the analyst is like the new Smith. And I love the character of the analyst. I thought it was such a wonderful touch. It was a great invention. So let the analyst be the new Smith adversary, and let all of the stuff that happens with, or even how about this? How about turn Smith into the analyst, meaning that Smith's program, after whatever happened with Neo, like got disassembled, and the Matrix, the suits, as they call them, the suits come up with a way to sort of give Smith what he always wanted, control of everything, in a way that was meaningful. That was the bargain that he worked out with them. And so I love the idea of the analyst. But I felt like Smith and the analyst were competing for the same sort of spot. And I wanted, what I really needed, or what would have been great, is we got this sort of, and Keanu, listen, we know he's capable of doing all the action stuff because he's doing all the John Wick movies, but it felt like, so, I don't know, there was something like very dialed in about his
I have
reluctant
a theory about
fighting.
that,
Please
so
go ahead.
I'm noting the fact that three of us, I'm assuming, are all straight white cis males here, or we might not be, but
yes,
nice wordplay about dicks. What I did love about this movie was including the Trinity Trinity is part, like half of the one type of thing, 1.5. I did like the fact that every person of power in this movie was feminine energy. I really like that. It's obvious. I think that's an obvious thing, right? Niobe
cool.
is the general.
I was so glad to see her. That was
so
awesome,
glad to see her. Bugs
great
is in charge.
touch.
Bugs is in charge of the ship, which is kind of, that's kind of where Morpheus was in the original trilogy. You know what I mean? It was a real shift of power and of like voice in the whole of this trilogy, or this franchise, not trilogy anymore. But I really like that, and I don't know if it's obviously intentional, and I think it might have to do with some of her commentary on what actually was happening in real life, and the fact that she also knows that her coming back was necessary to bring Keanu back, because Keanu wouldn't do this without the Wachowskis. He wouldn't do another Matrix movie without the Wachowskis. So, and they wouldn't pay for another Matrix without.
He didn't want. Yeah, he definitely
Keanu.
He didn't want to be there, dude. He didn't
right.
want to be
No, I'm
there.
saying it's like he did it for Lana, and she's using that, putting him kind of to the side, like a Fury Road type of push to the side.
Like fucking Mark Hamill in The Last Jedi.
A little bit, like, yeah, you could say that too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's an obvious choice. I think Lana's doing more with it because she has more to say about it. Like, because they did make a trilogy all centered on like a Jesus figure that was, a dude and everything. I think there's something there, but I'm not going to dissect it too far before I'm digging a hole.
But you listen, bottom line is again, thing aside, whether he's dialing it in or not, I just wanted to see what I was hoping for. What would have been nice, again, after, revisiting it, after seeing it and then rewatching it, I kind of like, I want to see the analyst and Neo, or Neo and Trinity together, however you want to do it, sort of going up against the analyst and getting
That's not the movie we're watching.
No, I know.
It's not about fighting. It's not about fighting. It's
not, which is again a very Last Jedi. That's why I'm saying it's a Last Jedi thing, and it does work. It absolutely does work for this film compared to. And again, like I said, the reason why I like the Last Jedi vibes of this film is that I really do. Whether they do make another thing or not, and she says she won't, but who knows what will happen if they do or don't.
I don't think Keanu would say yes, and they need Keanu for the money.
Well, in either which way, I don't know. That's what that Bugs character, that was some what's it called, Ray energy. They're like, let's bring in that new icon, that we can. That's why they're introducing us to the crew we don't care about, because they're thinking in their heads, nobody died. We didn't lose one crew member. And remember the original Matrix? They killed off every single member of that crew. Everybody died. I mean, that with the betrayal. And by the way, there's lots of little nods and hints and things that you could look for. He's eating steak at one point. There's the whole thing with when Joey Pants is eating steak, Yep.
I feel like we're talking too much, but I have a list of stuff I noticed in the beginning, first third.
Go ahead. Lay it on us.
I mean, Jeremy, I was like, I'm not talking over you.
No, I was just there was some things that really didn't work for that. Like, I don't know. Tell me how you guys felt about, towards the end when him and Trinity are kind of running away, and, so he's got this ability to stop bullets, right? As we all know.
Right.
But it's almost like he's like going like this, almost like he's holding an invisible shield, while they're running away, and he's just blocking the bullets.
Yeah, all he does
And
is
it's just-
block. He has one move.
And he's just like going like this while they're running away. It felt like, like when you're a little kid, and you're playing and you're like, oh, but I blocked them. It's okay. Like, it just seemed kind of infantile. It's just like, I don't know. It
was all, yeah, like he does. When does he do that most famously? I think it was Reloaded, right? Where he stopped the bullets. That was the trailer for Reloaded, right? With him stopping all the bullets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is all he had left. That was the only vestige of his character power set left, right? Like, he didn't have anything else.
Well, he was able to, make crush the cars. He could sort of force grab.
But once again, he doesn't even really have an arc in this film either. Like, he doesn't ever have an arc.
I think Lana Wachowski is aware of that. You know what I mean? Like, Neo is not the most interesting character. He never was.
He's not interesting at all.
You put yourself
so bland.
He's the Kermit the Frog, the Bugs Bunny, the Mark Hamill. Like, you put yourself in his place in that original movie.
Yes, you're right.
And that's why it works. The Twilight, what is
he's an avatar.
Yeah, he's an avatar for we put ourselves in there. I think they're aware of that, but they're also aware that, like I said, there's such a meta element to real life that you have to have Keanu be the star of this movie. You have to. Yeah. You just can't. A Matrix without Keanu, would anyone really care that much?
I don't know, but I loved watching him. You could tell they're really taking the piss when he, in the montage scene of monotony, like the repetitive, when they're just so good. And you literally, you didn't even have to explain all that stuff about Gremlins 2, because you can literally see Lana peeking her head out and just going, wink, like, I've got millions of dollars. I'm just fucking around with it.
I just took notes for the first half, because then I truly, honestly, just watched the second.
Go ahead, lay them on us.
Stuff I just made notes of. Like, the movie literally starts out with our character watching a bad remake of the movie. I mean, that's literally what is happening. I kind of didn't pick that up the first time. I was like, oh wait, Bugs is watching a shitty remake with other actors. Remaking the opening of the first Matrix movie. Incredible. And then they even asked he even asked the thing, why use old code to make something new? It's questioning remakes, right? And the story isn't the story we think it is. To me, that's her saying this is not going to be an action movie like you'd hoped it would be.
Right.
The sign that Bugs falls on, did not notice this. Don't know if you guys did, but it says really big, Anderson. And then it says to the side, this is the funny part, it says, for those who love to eat shit.
Really? Oh, I did not see that.
It's like directly fucking there. And you want to eat shit? Here it is.
I thought I saw something like that, but I didn't really think twice. I figured I must have just misread it.
It goes so fast. I paused it. Right? I paused it. It says, for those who love to eat shit. It's like so hard right there on the screen.
Bob, for anybody who might listen to this in the future or watching now, can you explain very briefly and succinctly how, if you see something on, I guess I'm saying it right now, actually, I'm explaining it, that if you see something on frame, it's not by accident. It's always, if you see something,
every frame is painting, right?
Right. Every single frame in any movie is on purpose, or you should always take it to be on purpose. There's never any accidents. There's nothing.
Especially with somebody a caliber of the Wachowskis. Like, anything that she puts on the screen, I trust was intentional. And it brings me to the next point. When they're running out of the movie theater, I don't know if you guys noticed the name of the movie on the billboard that was playing, but it's Root of All Evil.
Oh,
when they're running out of the movie theater, it says Root of All Evil. And then I also had some more theories that I think you guys might like. I noticed that if you really look at the architect when he is just the therapist, not when he turns into the architect, but if you really look at all the dialogue that the architect and Neo has, to me, Neo is Lana in this movie. Like, in a lot of ways, a lot of the dialogue is her. He's like a surrogate for Lana Wachowski, and Neil Patrick Harris is actually playing the franchise of the Matrix, and everything he's saying in that scene kind of is her dealing with what the franchise means to her and how she is processing what's going on right now.
Wow.
So I'm
gonna have to rewatch that.
Rewatch it with those eyes. I picked up on it the second time, and I really liked it. I'm almost done. Don't worry, this isn't that long. I've got zero tolerance for anything that requires a syllabus and a highlighter. So when they're doing the montage of them creating the Matrix 4 video game, the guy that says that he never liked the Matrix says that, he doesn't like anything that requires a syllabus and a highlighter. I like my games big, loud, and dumb. He later says, you know what? Reboots sell. The same guy that hated the Matrix is pro rebooting the Matrix, even though he hated the first one. This is an executive
and
speaking,
a syllabus,
okay?
and right.
Yeah,
like Lana was in a room, and this is what they were literally telling her. And she hires Christina Ricci for like no reason at all.
No reason at all.
No reason at all. Just to have her come in, and I'm like going like, is that Christina? Like, what's Christina Ricci going to do this film? Nothing.
Okay, this is my last.
Go ahead.
This is my last little thing. As far as Neo in this movie is Lana's voice. When he is in the coffee shop having his first like out and out conversation with Trinity, when she says, "But you made the Matrix," he says, "Yeah, we kept some kids entertained." And then she says, "Did you base that main character on yourself? There's a lot of me in it."
Yeah,
come on. I mean, it's like Neo is Lana in this movie, right? It seems like it has to be. It has to be.
In the fact that you're absolutely right. It's autobiographical in that
so autobiographical.
She created the Matrix video games. Like she has to do another one that she doesn't want to do. She like the fact that Smith is her boss. It's kind of funny. Like Smith is literally her boss.
The famous villain is the villain again.
Is her yes. Robbie says simulate. That was a nice little nod.
Yeah, simulate is great. Yeah, all the signs in this movie were like Simpsons level good,
Yes, they really, really were. And just there was just, and here's the thing that doesn't, and Jeremy, I want to get your opinion on this. I think another reason why it's hard to make a Matrix movie today is that the technology, like it was fascinating to watch the Matrix now with the shift in technology and computer technology and the amount of understanding that the average person has of like electronics and computers. Like we understand stuff even at a fun, like my son is on like YouTube at the age of 5. Like, it's just like, we have such a different, intimate, fundamental understanding of technology that now, like, I mean, payphones don't even exist anymore. So it's like, how do you update the Matrix?
Also, like the effects aren't as impressive. We're like, we're 21 MCU movies deep. Those Matrix fights released now, it's to a kid, it's like, I get it.
Yeah, we've had that.
I get it. Yeah,
we've had that.
Yeah.
So exactly. I think that technology-wise, I mean, if you look at the first film, right? It's not the very first scene, but he's like falling asleep. And, he's got his CRT monitor right there, right? And then he's like selling software to a guy, and it's on a 3.5-inch floppy disk.
Right.
And it's like
in his old room.
All that stuff is beyond obsolete now, Yeah. And, I remember, and he gets that FedEx, right, with the cell phone that slides out like that. And that was like cool, man.
That was like a huge deal too, right?
That was
when it flipped out, because we had brick Nokias. Nokia bricks.
I don't even see
those things go for like hundreds of dollars on eBay now. I bet.
Yeah,
really? They have to.
Yeah, and like flip phones, I don't think were even in vogue yet. No. It was like we had like just like the bricks, like you said, and so I mean, but I think they could have done personally a lot more with. Exploring like the way things are going today with like,
how about
you have things like you have catfishing, you have the metaverse, you have all this controversy going on with, like the social dilemma and stuff. And that's stuff that had they wanted to, they could have really done a deep dive in and made a really interesting film, but that's not.
That is a shame. That is a shame.
I think what's interesting, what you just said, Jeremy, is that inside the Matrix, there seems to be literally no social media. Like the machines deprived us of that.
That's not true. People are looking at their phones in that elevator scene.
They are. Briefly. But you know what I mean? Like it's not the machines have, I think there's a suppression going on there or something, but it's not explained. It's not as big of a part of that society because they never really go into how normal society works in any of the Matrix movies,
Right.
which I'm always interested in. Like,
no, but that's what's so crazy is that you have to imagine that we just assume that their society, like Thomas Anderson in 1999, we just assume that like his society is like our society because they say at the height of the 20th century, but machines made it. So it's probably like there could be like a whole thing where like they just walk through walls and we never see it, or I don't know, some ridiculous like feature. Be like, what? You mean you don't use your foot to wash your laundry? Like, you know, ridiculous.
I saw somebody. There are a lot of people hate this movie. I saw a total like shit posting fuck this movie like on my Facebook feed, and the person was saying that the dialogue for all the millennials speaking is terrible. And my first thought was, dude, it's like machines that have been writing dialogue for people for 100 years or more. Like these people aren't supposed to speak like us, right? Like they don't know what we're saying anymore.
Yeah. I have a question for you guys. There was something that I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention or if it just didn't land on me correctly. Like there's a part where, they say that the machines are trying to hide him, right? Someone's telling the machines are trying to hide you, and he's like, if they're trying to hide me, like why would they make me a guy called Tom Anderson who programmed a game called The Matrix? And
actually, I think that makes total sense to me.
Just hiding in plain sight, like that.
Not only hiding in plain sight by making the truth, by putting so much truth into his fiction that's what happens to him. He becomes confused. He goes to the analyst who has to sort of like help him sort what's real and what's not, which is actually the WandaVision-esque sort of brilliance that I wanted more of. I wanted him. Like if this was like a 10 episode miniseries, I would want him to spend 4 episodes, like just struggling with reality. Like the first episode, like at the very end, right before the credits, we get our first hint that this is not the real world. Like we spend the entire like hour or whatever it is in some sort of Matrix life of Thomas Anderson, and then slowly just unravel it and then bring us up to speed on everything. That would have been, and one other thing too. And then in that, it's like, there were a lot of missed opportunities. We understand why Lana was doing what she was doing. There were many missed opportunities to do some incredibly thoughtful, and we know maybe that's not what she wanted to do. She didn't want to do it. Her sister didn't want to do it. Her sister was like, you take this one. I'm not even
I think the question of how much does she care about the movie itself is up for discussion. Because like, I think I know all the stuff I said. I believe in that, like that she doesn't want there to be a sequel and stuff. But like, I compared it to Gremlins 2. I know that Joe Dante cared about how Gremlins 2 turned out. I'm not sure.
But Gremlins 2 is a good movie.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Like a legitimately good movie.
But what I'm saying is, I don't know if Lana cares about this movie. I think we might need a few years, and then maybe she does an interview or talks about it some other time. But I don't know if those are mistakes or there's his intention. She kind of
don't know why she wouldn't want to say more. That's all.
Did she just wanted to get to 2 hours? Is my question.
Yeah, I honestly think so, and that's why we got so much requel. Like we got so much remake and like repetitive, and it was more of a fuck you when it was an opportunity.
Which I respect. Okay. I respect the fuck you. Believe me.
Listen. I respect the fuck you, but a part of me is also like, look, you're gonna spend all the time doing this anyway. Like you could have had a whole thing with a character who is completely catfishing or is in a complete situation where we're with them in the Matrix, and then when they get yanked out, they're not the person that we thought they were in the Matrix at all, and they look completely different. And it was just an opportunity to really say something about like what people do every day, and as well as an opportunity to perhaps, if one wanted to say something about all the different sort of social issues that people deal with in their lives today. And so I don't know. Not that you have to, but
I don't know the obviously don't know the Wachowskis, and they're kind of a mysterious voice, right? Like we kind of don't know that much about their personal life. They've never been interviewed people like heavily or anything. Like my guess is that they're not that connected to like social happenings. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everything we're seeing here is a response to Lana's own experience with the franchise and the studio and just movies in general. She wasn't concerned with responding to the world. This is a response to the franchise, the studio,
I get
her
it.
story. I'm just guessing. I'm not saying, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
No,
just
it's a good,
guessing.
it's a very good guess. And I don't take any umbrage with her for that. But again, it's a 2.5 hour movie.
It is really
It's like,
long.
it's like, come on, if you're going to spend 2.5 hours, like, come on, we know what you're capable of. You've done it brilliantly in the past. So what? You're getting paid millions of dollars to do this. Just do it. Like, do something, you know? I don't know.
They're such an interesting entity. Like, I don't know if you guys all saw Jupiter Ascending. Have you seen Jupiter Ascending?
I have seen Jupiter Ascending.
Because that's like literally them wasting $160 million of the studio's money for no reason. It's just like they did it because it was like they don't want to work again. If you ever read about that, like they kind of
I did not know that.
They didn't want to work in the studio system anymore. Like this isn't Lana's first time doing something like this. Like Jupiter Ascending, the story is that they didn't want to make any more of these movies or be a part of this anymore, so they wasted $160 million on one of the most insane blockbusters.
It's not that bad, man.
It's not that bad, but dude, Jeff, come on, that thing is not for. It's like weird.
No, it's very hard to digest. It's so hard to digest.
I mean, I kind of love it, but
I gotta run. But this has been a pleasure.
Man, it's great talking.
Yeah, thank you for having me,
Jeremy. Thank you so much. We're winding down anyway.
And I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna do a rewatch because all this stuff about it being like a meta, like sort of statement to Warner Brothers, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm gonna watch it through that lens.
But listen, I really need you to do is I need you to watch Family Matters season 3, so we can.
Yes. Well, actually, it's season 2, part 2. We only did.
Are you kidding?
Yeah,
we did season 2, part 2.
We did season 2, part 1. We've only done 3 episodes.
God damn it, dude!
But listen,
just do it.
And then
man.
there's just one thing that I really wanted to call everyone's attention to concerning all the Matrix movies. That when I was watching it, I was watching Revolutions the other day, and something that I just couldn't help but crack up at is when, you know, the Smiths come to the Oracle and they turn the Oracle into Smith, and you get that zoom up of that sinister laugh, and just a and I was just like, this is fucking ridiculous.
Really quick, if I can recommend, you look up. There's a YouTube channel called Just Right, and it's called On Finally Understanding the Matrix Sequels. I've sent the video to Jeff a few times, I think. He references that shot in that video about how much fun Hugo Weaving is having in the movie.
Yeah.
Like he references the shot you just said so many times.
Okay, I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah, definitely check that out. It's a great video. That's a great channel too, by the way.
All right. Yeah. Have a good night, guys. Happy New Year.
Have a good night. New Year. You have some great you have some happy birthday. It's his birthday tomorrow.
Happy birthday. He's gone, but happy birthday, Jeremy.
The man, you have some good taste in video critical analysis. YouTube
I watch
channels.
that stuff. I guess.
Oh my god!
I try to make my own, but I really
it's hard.
Admire...
It's hard. It's really hard.
I'm not like one to.
This is a lazy version. This is the lazy version of that.
I've always done the lazy version where I'm basically doing it on the fly, but I've never been one to sit down. I used to write.
If you take notes and you do it on the fly, you can do an approximation. But
I don't like reading an essay and then editing B-roll to it, which some people on the internet are just so good at it.
Good.
Lindsay Ellis is incredible at it. If you
she's good at it. You would crush it though, dude. You would crush it.
I like doing my podcast stuff. I think that's where my personality comes out, and that's where I like doing it. You too. I mean, I would say that about you too, right?
You know what the problem is? Yeah, I love doing it because I never shut the hell up. But you know what the thing is? Like,
right.
But the thing is, the problem is, especially what could be frustrating is that I could do this stream of consciousness that I'm doing right now, and then I could spend a month doing a carefully crafted video essay, and I've gotten comparable numbers. And so it just kind of makes me go like the amount of effort versus watching a movie, taking a bunch of notes and then riffing off of my head. This is like live improvisational spoken word critical cinema analysis is what this is.
So still on my movie podcast, we're still going to do the Matrix Resurrections. And this to me is not a conflict of those ideas, because that show will be like those guys write an outline about the script itself, and we will go through the mechanics of the script. Completely different vibe than I know what talking to Jeff.
Right.
From
You guys talk about you guys talk about you guys talk about the particular
scripting
mechanics.
Things.
Yeah.
Yes, those guys are geniuses, and they work that out. So
I'm curious to know. So answer this question for me as we're winding down here. We're winding down. Let's get give me 15 more minutes and I'll let you let you free. As you in my grasp. No. No, I
wanted to be on, man. What are you
talking
about?
You do. I know you love talking. You're always down to rap, and I love that about you. So what is, help me understand if even possible, in the original Matrixes and this Matrix, who has an arc, who doesn't? Like, we know Smith has an arc. Does anybody have an arc in this thing? I guess Trinity?
You're asking in the original trilogy specifically, or
I think in all of the movies? Does anybody? I guess maybe we know everybody has an arc in the original Matrix film. Like, the script is really tight, really iron tight.
The original Matrix movie, I think, is a perfect movie as far as perfect can be. Like, perfect doesn't exist, but if you're talking about blockbuster
Morpheus
movies
has an arc.
Studio,
Yeah, like Trinity has an arc, and everything weaves together so perfectly. Where she, the whole thing, and she's like, you have to be the one because I've fallen in love with you, and like it's just the whole thing just clicks so well together.
I'm just talking about Neo. Now I'm like actively rewatching the sequels right now. Like, I'm halfway through Reloaded just because your Resurrections made me want to watch them, and I watch them every now and then. So, but Neo doesn't necessarily change in the sequels. He just learns what his destiny is, and that's different. Learning facts and what you're supposed to do is different than changing who you are, in my opinion. And I think most people can agree on that, especially writers.
Yeah, for sure.
You understand that.
Yes.
So I don't think anything's wrong with that. And
yeah, that's not.
Totally have movies that have a main character that have a flat arc. Back to the Future, Marty McFly doesn't have a big arc. It's still a perfect movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it just is.
I don't think he has any arc when I'm thinking about it.
We did an episode on it, and I argued that thing, but Jimmy kind of changed my mind a little bit. But the classic question is the person at the end of the movie, would he do the same thing at the beginning of the movie if you transplanted them? Like,
right. Oh my God. That's you just that is the perfect litmus question for any character.
That's usually what I think. That's a writing standard question.
I didn't know that. Thank you. You just taught me something. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, I think Neo, you can say Neo would be different at the end of the Matrix than he would at the beginning of the first one.
For sure.
But I don't know if you take the two sequels as one movie, if Neo is that much different as a character. I don't think he is. I think he just learns.
Morpheus doesn't change then. Morpheus would do at the beginning of the Matrix as the same as he would do at the end of the Matrix.
He still fully believes.
He always believes. He never changes from his belief. And that goes all the way through until the very end. If anything, what would have given him more spice in the original Matrix trilogy would have been for him to stop believing at like maybe the end of the second movie and then have that be a crisis of faith, like weaved into the third movie. I don't know how that would work. I'm just saying you'd probably have to change a whole bunch of story stuff, but I'm just saying it would have been far more interesting for him to, it's like, doesn't the second one always has to do a 180 on whatever the first one's doing. So in the second movie, Morpheus would have to stop believing in the one before.
Yeah, the second movie is like, once again, I think it's a product of what you said before, Jeff. Like, they kind of didn't know what they were doing with Niobe.
Right? Yeah, they most certainly did not.
I agree. Niobe did change in this movie.
She did. She did.
I think the problem, once again, with Reloaded is like the first one was like there is no spoon, and then the second one was like there's kind of a spoon. In this one, and with Morpheus, Reloaded messed up because it's like in the first one, Morpheus is willing to straight up sacrifice himself for Neo, and in the second movie, he's willing to straight up sacrifice himself for Neo again. He kind of does the same thing again. It's not like you said, they didn't make it dynamic. Morpheus is still on his path, which kind of sucks because Morpheus is sort of the most interesting character, right?
Very
In the
much
first
so.
movie, he's the
In
most
the first
interesting.
one, for sure.
He's
Yeah.
the most interesting character.
His
So, like,
love for Neo is so
pure.
wonderful. It's so pure and it's so wonderful. Like when Neo makes the decision to rescue him from the agents, and like that he like puts himself in certain danger to do it, like you really feel like the love between the two of them, that you believed in me and now I'm going to believe in you, and that Morpheus is so blown
we just
away.
become best friends. Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just it's beautiful.
It's a beautiful moment. Not that, look, not that Lawrence Fishburne fighting on top of a Mack truck isn't awesome, and I love it to death. I wouldn't trade that scene for anything.
Nothing.
But thematically, what's happening is he's once again risking his life for something he believes in without falter. Like, that's just his cause, and they didn't shake that up at all. So yes, I agree with you. They should have shaken his faith.
Yes.
And then maybe like his faith dipping in the middle of Reloaded and then regaining it at the end, maybe at the end of Revolutions or something, would have been way more interesting. But I think they just had too much on their hand. I can't even imagine what it's like to make those two movies. The
back to back.
Yeah, like it's like people can complain about movies all they want, but stuff like that has to just slip your mind. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we kind of didn't service Morpheus in the end.
Which goes
back. They're already filmed.
Which goes back to like what we were talking about on Facebook of like, you can like, I am all for criticizing a film, but like you have to say something intelligent. Like you can't just like, you have to explain yourself, say something intelligent, and do it respectfully and like with understanding. So even if we don't like, again, even if we both look at the glaring faults of those two sequels, that we at least contextualize and understand and go, like, I mean, look what they're doing. Like, look at what they are helming or trying to bring. And the same thing with, again, providing that context about what Lana was going through when she decided to do this fourth Matrix film. And
it's on screen, right? Like
it's on screen. And
I'll tell you something. She provided it, Jeff. Like she gave it to us in a movie.
I wasn't reading. I had sort of seen. I saw some of that stuff for sure. I mean, I was laughing when they were talking about that in the boardroom and like that they have to make a new Matrix film. I was like, obviously they're trying to do something meta, but that sort of took it to a whole new level of understanding. And again, like it's almost like the further with the trolling of like, hey, I'm not even going to explain like how or why the Matrix is still here and why the robots were having a civil war, which is also what a cool concept to like
totally gloss over,
dangle. Yeah, just like dangle in front of our faces. Like,
but that's the troll move. That's the troll move.
Like, I know it is. And
nobody wanted this story. This story that we got is not the one anyone was asking. I didn't even know.
Which is the same thing as Last Jedi. Nobody wanted that story.
Yeah, I mean, and I turned out to want it. Some people didn't. But this one is definitely, from what I'm looking at my feeds, this is not what most people wanted from the fourth Matrix movie.
And the other thing too, I was like, what's the reason for inserting him back into the Matrix? What's the reason for bringing him to life? Which, by the way, we did not acknowledge is what a hellish nightmare existence. He literally spent years, if not decades, slowly being rebuilt and like tortured and like gruesomely mangled, like next to Trinity. But like the reasoning for why they rebuilt him and hit him and all this stuff was brilliant. The idea is that he's a super battery, and that when they torture him and put him next to Trinity, that the record output, all that stuff. I thought that was great. I really loved that. And I loved that I couldn't think of a reason why he had a personality, but I loved that what's his name? The Neil Patrick Harris. What's his name? The
architect?
Yeah, not the architect. What's his name? He's not the architect. The analyst.
Oh, the analyst.
I love that the analyst had sort of like this. He actually had like a synthetic human personality. Oh, and then there was the whole thing too about like the robots. They don't want to be called machines, as derogatory call them, which I thought was again very like great, interesting.
I think like there's a lot of stuff there where this movie's very hard to discuss in that, like, I see a lot of people say I really dug the meta stuff, but then the rest of it didn't work for me. When I'm thinking, I'm trying to wrestle in my head, like, there's part of our brains that want a sci-fi movie from this, right?
Right.
And then there's some of us, maybe maybe some more of our friends mutually are filmmakers and people that think like that. I respect a filmmaker kind of giving the middle finger to everyone and just doing their own thing because of the hell that a studio's put them through. So but I can also say like, yeah, but you know what? I was kind of hoping for like green tinted karate scenes, like there's still part of me that was kind of hoping for that. And this movie, the fighting is lackluster, not very good.
Here's the thing.
It doesn't even look like it's shot that well. It's not really stylistic at all. Like all of that is fucking gone, man. It is gone. It is not a stylistic movie.
And what you just nailed it on the head about, again, as you and all the other Last Jedi people out there, you just nailed it on the head. What did you just say? You said, I wanted some green tinted. I kind of wanted some green tinted karate stuff. And that's what people going into Star Wars are going, oh, Luke
I know they wanted a ninja
Skywalker.
I know.
Luke Skywalker is coming. He's going to have his lightsaber. He's going to pull the X-Wing. They're setting it up. What a Chekhov's gun that was. They're setting up.
At least they got it.
Pull the
they
thing
got
out.
It sort of, right? Like they got in Mandalorian, so they got that.
They got that, and they also got some
which
stuff that JJ tried to do stuff.
I didn't like the ending of Mandalorian. I'm that guy. So
you didn't like the ending of Mandalorian
season 2. I didn't like the ending.
What, you didn't like Luke coming in there and taking away the kid?
No, but that's a whole different episode. I liked Mandalorian, but I didn't like that. But that's a whole different.
I want to see where that goes. Oh my god! Yes.
Well, no, I'm going to always watch that stuff. But that's a different discussion. I don't want to open that. But it's weird for me to say that and then be like, what I like about the Matrix sequels, is how over the top they are. They're bombastic, dude.
Bombastic is the perfect word, especially Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne on the truck. That's bombastic.
How's this? Let me say this: the texture, both sound and visually, of those sequels rules. Yeah. I don't like. We can criticize the story and themes and arcs all day, but the texture of them, I love. Even when I was a kid, I loved them. Yeah. Even when I hated the movies, I was like, yeah, it was pretty cool. Like those scores, man, those scores are amazing. The music choices are incredible. This movie I couldn't even tell you what this movie sounds like. It doesn't really have a sound. It's such a different thing. It has no texture of what we're used to from this franchise. I think it's probably a conscious choice that she shucked all of that. She's like, we're not doing any of that. We're not today. We're even going to film the inside of the Matrix like it looks like it's like a slightly darker lit romantic comedy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't look like the other movies.
It looks clinical. A lot of the
clinical.
Stuff.
That's
clinical. It's clinical, man. Yeah. And you could tell. It's almost like I have to care for a child that I don't love at this point. That's what it. That's what it is. It's I have to care for a child I don't love.
I would love to her to tell us, like, was that intentional? Is that something she wanted, or is it because she's like, well, if we did it stylistically, I'd take more time and effort and more money that I didn't want to ask for.
I'm sure. And you want to know what else too? You do get the sense. I know this sounds really crazy, but you do get the sense that there's a trilogy of films in this one film. And you could no, for sure. That's definitely there. The first film is him trapped in the Matrix again, and then the second film is where would the second film? Well, they go back to the Zion-esque city and all that jazz.
Re-reloaded,
and then the third film is when we figure out they have to free Trinity and she comes back. So it's like they've sort of pseudo taken 3 concepts that could have been its own trilogy and shove them into one film because we don't want to make any more films and screw this. And so there is a lot of stuff going on. I don't know. And to answer Robbie's question here, because I wanted to ruminate on that super quick. Well, I don't know what the deal was. I don't know what that would be. I think it was I think that was Lana's way of just being like, again, talking about like this movie is rife with feminine energy and it's Lana saying, Neo is not the only one who can remake this world. I want Trinity to remake this world as well. So she is also the one. and that she is in this box of being Tiffany and that she's not. And she even knows it. Like, she knows deep down inside when she has to call herself Tiffany begrudgingly, she knows that her name is not Tiffany.
She can feel it hurts almost.
She can feel
it
it deep
wrong.
down inside. And then suddenly she remembers why. And she goes, I hate that name or something. And we're all supposed to cheer. And, you know,
what was her husband was, what is it? I was trying to look it up. Her husband
babe.
But that's isn't that David Litch, the guy who directed like John Wick?
I don't know.
It is. I'm pretty sure it is. Like, I'm trying to look for it right now, but
very WandaVision-esque though, with the kids and the, you know, like
right.
There is a
I
sense
feel like
of
his casting means something too. I don't know what it is, but it feels
probably
weird. He's not really an actor, but he's playing Trinity's husband, and he happens to be the guy that would direct action movies, famous action movies starring Keanu. It's like something's there, right? Like, it means something. I can't believe it wouldn't. I can't believe that it wouldn't mean anything. It's just like the thing that's suppressing Trinity is also another Hollywood director who once controlled Neo.
Right.
So I don't know. It's like a labyrinth of inside themes and jokes.
The bottom line closing thoughts here. We're always going to watch all the way to Matrix Resurrections because that's how it works with sequels. No matter how much we want to stop at the perfect first film, we have to accept that it's just the head and that there's a body that follows. However, at the end of the day, everything that needs to be said about the Matrix and what makes the Matrix so great can really be found in that first film. And in this way, we don't have to be sad that there might not be any more, because everything that we've gotten since has not really enriched what was so great about that first film. And therefore, if you really just want to be happy and satisfied, and I feel this way about the Scream series. Of course, I'm happy about Scream 5 coming out. And of course, I'm going to see it. I'm a huge Scream fan. However,
5 Cream.
Emotionally, 5 Cream, of course. I was literally making this joke with I did a podcast on Scream with this other guy, Mark, and we were talking about 5 Cream. No, but point being that for me, Scream ends with Scream 3. When she looks back and doesn't need to close her door, talking about characters changing and having arcs, she ends that series of Final Girl films where she feels comfortable leaving the door wide open and that there's no boogeyman that's going to come and get her and she goes to watch a movie with her friends. I don't care what happens in Scream 4 or Scream 5. Like, the movies end there and I'm perfectly happy. It's the same thing with the Matrix. Like,
so if I had a final meta thought on this, I don't know if you remember this, but I'd have to look it up because I actually don't remember the exchange on Twitter, but I remember it happening. Was some right-wing person was saying something about how somebody else had been taking their blue pills, and then Lana Wachowski responded.
Elon Musk said, "Fuck you."
And Lana, she responded, "Fuck you," and I feel like
it was awesome.
It's so awesome. I feel like this movie, not being a techno ninja sci-fi action movie like everyone assumed it would be, is sort of the grandiose fuck you to the exact people who would want that from it. Like, the one thing that guys like that worship Elon Musk would hate is a love story, and the one thing they would hate more is their precious action movie franchise turning into a love story.
Right. And that's Lana just being like, fuck all those, red pill freaks. I'm going to give them something that doesn't.
I'm going to give them two lovers floating around in the sky like lovebirds. Like, because that's the absolute fuck you. And if I just look at it from an aerial view, like just from that, I absolutely love it.
And you want to know something too? That's a great place to leave these characters. Like, I was when I saw that at the very end, like I had problems, but when I saw that at the very end and I thought, oh, this kind of feels it does feel a little final to me. I have no idea whether we're going to make a sequel or not, but I was going, I thought in my head, I asked myself this question. I said, is this a better place to leave these films than what happens at the end of Matrix Revolutions? 100,000% yes. Mm-hmm. Just having them fly like birds off into the sky, great.
But it also, you know what? I think it uses that time lapse. I think it uses the 18 years. Like, Revolutions ends where it does, and I don't hate the end of Revolutions, but this used the 18 years, and it feels right for the 18 years. Like,
you know what it is about the end of
right?
Yes, and you want to know
Yeah.
what you know what it is. We didn't. I have to say this one last thing. We tell me if you agree with this. It's not that, and I was trying to put a finger on. It's like when you're sleeping on a bed and it's really uncomfortable and you're not sure why it's uncomfortable. You know what it is? I feel no catharsis and no satisfaction from the end of Revolutions. It's not even about what it does. It's just more about how it makes me feel. I get to the end of Revolutions and I'm just kind of like, I shrug my shoulders and go, like, all of this for that.
It has all the warmth of a college 101 philosophy class. It really does. It's just that's what those sequels are. They don't have any warmth. They were trying to do something other than hold us in their arms anymore.
As
they
a point,
say, he will come and save you. They're like, he's gonna kill himself, and there's kind of a lot of matrices,
right?
And whatever.
And then as opposed to the original Matrix, where I almost get like well up with tears at the end when between Morpheus's belief in unwielding faith in Neo, and when Trinity says, like, you have to be the one because I fell in love with you, and then to see him see the Matrix and truly embrace who he really is, it's like the most beautiful thing. It's so beautiful. It's so it makes you well up with emotion, because you trivially cannot imagine. Wait, so he's the one. So how does the one work, and what are the powers of the one?
It doesn't matter at that point. At the end of the Matrix, without the sequels, it stops there. I always just assumed he's God. He fixes everything.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They can't even touch him anymore. And then it's not true, which sucks, because like you said, I am not one of those people that can just go, well, the sequels never happened. I have to reckon with them, even if I hate them.
We have to reconcile.
I have to reconcile.
Just like Scream 4.
Indy 4 is
just like Scream 4.
Indiana Jones save those crystal skulls, and there's nothing I can do about it.
I love that movie. You
can love it, sir.
Issue.
And we will just not
fire ants.
About it.
Fire ants. I love those fire ants.
Regardless, when you hate, I simultaneously believe when I hate a sequel, it still happened. Just like in life, I have years of my life that I might want to forget, but they happen. So whenever like,
great point.
Whenever a franchise respects sequels like that, I always respect it. The MCU has never once run away from Ultron. In fact, Ultron became a pivotal movie in their entire franchise, and it's one of the most hated. And I'm always like, you know what?
I liked Ultron. I never had a problem with it.
But you know how people responded to that movie.
Yeah,
what I'm
people
saying
were not
is,
happy.
Like if you don't do that, you end up with something kind of like Terminator. The Terminator franchise is a nightmare of retcons that doesn't make any sense, and it's kind of terrible.
And it makes me really mad.
It makes me mad. Like,
so mad.
Like, look, if sequels happen, they happen. The life of those characters happen. You got to deal with it. Deal with it.
If you shot that shit, and then it fucking exists. And it's the same thing. Yeah. Fucking Halloween. You
don't even get me started. Right.
You criminals.
Exactly.
You criminals.
Yeah, this retconning bullshit. I understand, and it annoys me that everyone's so okay with it. I'm like, no, it's like a book series.
People it's like religion to accept this. Like, I can't get over it.
There's
no resistance. There's no resistance.
Who's the guy who directed District 9? Which I love District 9. What's his name?
Neil Blomkamp.
Blomkamp.
Who I like. Yes, I love.
He's awesome. Yeah. But when he was going to do the remake or do the RoboCop sequel, but it was going to retcon 2 and 3, I was like,
BS.
How dare you?
Even part 3.
I don't even like part 3 that much. But I'm like, no, it happened. It was in there. It happened.
Part 3, that's what I mean. Part 3. Everybody hates part 3, but part 3 happened. Okay.
Yeah, it happened.
Can't deny it.
With it. He had a jetpack and he fought. Yes. He fought a ninja robot.
Yeah, and he fought an evil one. Yes.
He had a gun on his arm for a little bit. It all happened, and you got to deal with it.
There was a little girl. Yeah. Can't deny it. All right, we got to end this. It's never going to stop. I want to thank Bob so much. I love having Bob on my channel. We always have endless fun. Bob, we'll think of the next thing that next time something comes up. Maybe we could do Boba Fett or something. The book of Boba Fett. Yeah. Who knows? We'll figure something out.
It's your show. You just tell me when to show up.
That's right. I tell Bob. Bob doesn't get paid, but I just tell Bob to show up and give me his time, and he does it because that's what he has to do. But Bob is he's got a Thunder Grunt podcast empire himself. He does. He does. It's an empire, and he makes the most. Talk about bombastic. He makes the craziest shorts. you ever saw. I mean, just absolute banana bonkers wonderfulness. So check out Bob. We'll add links to the description below. Subscribe to Bob, and also, God, what's the name of the writing podcast?
So you just look up Thunder Grunt as a podcast. Thunder Grunt as
okay.
a podcast, and I have shows that are on that feed. So
Yeah,
the movie show you're talking about is Writers Blockbusters.
that's the big one. People love that one.
People love that one. I do. My co-host is Jamie Nash, who actually just wrote an official Save the Cat book, and the amazing Jimmy George.
Jimmy George.
He is the co-writer of WNUF Halloween and Call Girl Cthulhu. And he's a script consultant. So those guys are geniuses. I am the everyman on that podcast, and I'm proud to be the everyman, the guy who watched too many movies but has no clue what all the terms are. So yeah, listen to that if you want to hear me talk.
Thunder Grunt, people. Well, I'll link it. I will link it. Thank you so much, Bob. We have a wonderful way of closing out. We say peace and hair grease. And Bob, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play my Patreon video, but I know you got to go. We're not going to, usually I say goodbye to my guest afterwards. I'm just going to say goodbye to you now.
Okay.
And then I'm just going to end this thing. So goodbye, Bob. Goodbye, everybody. Patreon.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jeff. So I've decided to make a Patreon. What is Patreon? I don't know how to define a Patreon. Let me look it up. Patreon is a membership platform that makes it very easy for creators to get paid for the things that they're already creating. I want to do it full time. I want this to be my full-time job. In my efforts to make that happen, I've set up this platform. Is it going to work? Is it going to be successful? I don't know, but I would rather try and crash and burn than not try at all. The goal is to create enough passive revenue so that I can continue to do this full-time, uninterrupted. Why? Because I love to do this. I love creating content. I love making videos. I love shooting films. I love doing podcasts. In case you couldn't tell, I love to talk and I never shut the fuck up. So right now I've kept the Patreon incredibly simple. There's 2 tiers, and that may change in the future. The Murdergram is a simple way to extend support for all of the hours and hours of free content on the channel for nothing more than $1. 38 cents goes to Patreon. What's $1.38, eh? It's less than a cup of coffee, but it's a great way that you can show support for very little effort. When you divide that $1.38 by the hours and hours and hours of time spent listening to this endless drivel of content, the dollar cost average works out. Next up is the YouTube Casualty for $6.66. The YouTube Casualty is loaded to the gills. Enjoy the archive ad-free, as well as ad-free early access to special docu-style podcast videos, music reaction commentaries, and the like, a month before they drop on YouTube, loaded with ads, I might add. You're also going to get exclusive content and behind-the-scenes content that is not available on YouTube or anywhere else. So you get to peek behind the veil. And believe me, there's a couple of choice pieces. Most of all, more than anything, whether you join the Patreon or not, I just want to thank each and every one of you that comes to the channel, that watches all the shows, that leaves comments, that participates, that subscribes. That's really the most important thing. This is just trying to find a way to earn a living as an artist. And with that, thank you for my TED Talk. Join the Patreon, because we need you!
66 cents.